time as we at 10:45. You know, we always have a date on a day like this where we have the Ministry of Industry, Mines and Energy joining us in studio to power our future. And this morning we have Mr. Gavin Kavindikiza. He is a geoscientist at the ministry. And of course, listen, last week we got so excited, we got so curious, we got so interested in the field of geoscience that's basically called medical geology, that, you know, this week we're like, we want to get into a bit more. And that's exactly why we have Mr. Gavin joining us today, as he gets to shed more light on this very, very interesting topic. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you.
All right. Yeah. Nice to have you in studio. Just to break it down, we, speak of the study of geoscience, but then we got to learn that there's something also that's called medical geology. Talk to us about what that is in brief.
Yeah, basically in brief, medical geology is just the interaction of geological materials. Okay. Now we're talking about soils, we're talking about rocks, minerals. Their occurrences, how they distribute it, and of course their consequences on human and animal health. Yeah, it's a relatively new field of study that is gaining momentum as we speak at the moment.
Nice. I think this is also why we're like, we need to get a bit more on this, because we touched a little bit on it last week, but this week we're getting more insight as you take us through. Talking about that, how does geoscience identify elements or substances that affect human health?
Yeah, basically the way we, as geologists, identify it is we map. There's mapping, what we call mapping, where we go out in the field, we collect samples of rocks, of soils, of even, in certain instances, even air particles, as well as water. Okay. We bring this back to the laboratory, have them analyzed on specialized machines, and from that we were able to basically produce maps that will tell you the concentration of these elements in nature.
All right.
Basically.
Now, what are some of the common deficiencies or even toxins that are observed in humans, and really how does geoscience then address this? Yeah,
we should understand that that elements are the building blocks of minerals, and minerals in turn actually they combine to form rocks. So when we're talking about essential elements for human and animal health, it's elements, of course, like calcium, chlorine, magnesium, your phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, copper, fluorine, iodine, and so forth. Yeah. The non-essential ones, on the other hand, are the ones that often come with very harmful properties. Okay. Now we're talking of arsenic, your cadmium, mercury, and lead. All of these elements are actually released into the environment through geological processes. Okay. Now we're talking about weathering, leaching, erosion, of course, even volcanic eruptions release these elements in the atmosphere. All right. Yeah. And of course, the big one that we have is mining. Yeah, the mining that we conduct, both underground and surface, also release these elements out into the environment.
All right. Now, what are some of the essential and non-essential elements that, again, impact human biological systems?
Yeah, no, like I said before, the essential ones are the ones like, of course, the calcium, chlorine, magnesium, and so forth that I mentioned just a minute ago. Yeah, those are the ones that, of course, the important for
human biology.
For developing, say, your bones, the skin of animals and humans, for that matter. And the non-essential ones are the ones that we said that come with the harmful properties, like your arsenic and so on. Yeah.
So are we then saying these is the harmful ones are then related to the toxins that we were referring to earlier? Okay, okay.
But then again, on the other hand, when it comes to the definition of toxicity, all substances are actually poisons. There's none that's not a poison. Okay. It's actually about the right dosage.
Okay. Because, so getting the quantity right.
Yeah. Very often, if you've got too much of an element, you've got toxicity, which can lead to death. And then also if you've got too little of a certain element, then we have a deficiency, which can also, of course, lead to death or to
it's taking me to my class of biology. I'm thinking about things like rickets, and stuff of that sort. All right, nice. Well, if you're just joining in, we are touching base on the field of study in geoscience called Medical Geology. And this time around, joining us in studio is Mr. Gavin Kavindikiza, who is a geoscientist at the Ministry of Industry, Mines and Energy. And of course, he's in studio helping us to shed more light on this very interesting topic. Now, if you're just joining in, we will be touching base in a bit on some of the common medical geology problems that are actually observed in society. Maybe with a little bit of what Mr. Kavindikiza had already highlighted, you have a few coming to mind, but you could be surprised with some others that he'll be adding on to that. We'll be back on the other side of this.
The Ministry of Mines and Energy is the cornerstone of Namibia's natural resource management, safeguarding our country's geological, mineral and energy assets. From fueling homes to driving industries, we regulate the entire spectrum of mining and energy sectors, ensuring responsible development from small-scale operations to large-scale enterprises. We prioritize sustainability, balancing economic growth with environmental stewardship to ensure a prosperous future for all Namibians. At the Ministry of Mines and Energy, we go beyond managing resources. We power progress, illuminate opportunities, and secure the future for generations to come. Harnessing our resources, powering our future.
So that's the 99 FM. We are with the Ministry of Industry, Mines and Energy. The geoscientist joining me this morning is Mr. Gavin Kavindikiza, who is, of course, giving us a bit more insight on this field of study in geoscience called Medical Geology. Of course, he gave us a breakdown of what it is, as well as really just looking at identifying elements or substances that affect human health. We got to touch on that. Like I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago, it felt like I was in my biology class, thinking rickets. But I think also talking about that, we are getting into another aspect that brings us much closer to perhaps a little bit of that biology class. And Mr. Kavindikiza is, of course, the perfect person to get into answering this question. I'm curious, what are some of the common medical geology problems observed in society?
Some of the common ones that we've observed in, especially even in humans. If you've got an iodine deficiency, for instance, you've seen people with a swollen thyroid gland. Which is called goiter. The deficiency is called hypothyroidism, and can often lead to severe tiredness, people feeling cold, weight gain, and so forth. In children, especially, the deficiency of calcium and vitamin D leads to the condition called rickets. We know of skin cancers, which are caused by elevated concentrations of arsenic. These are in some mining districts that we observe. In the case of lead, for instance, it leads to a condition called plumbacism, where children can actually have brain defects and as well as nervous system damage. In adults, that can lead to brain, kidney, and other cardiovascular issues. A very common problem that we also have in Namibia, for instance, is with fluoride. A deficiency of fluoride can actually cause dental cavities, weak bones and teeth, because fluorine is actually essential for that. And that's why even, for instance, the World Health Organization recommends like a certain dosage of like 0.5 milligram per liter, which may be supplemented in drinking water, or the use of fluoride toothpaste, for instance. On the other hand, remember when we spoke about toxicity, where we said too much is also not good. We know even in cases of regions in Namibia where too much fluorine actually also causes staining and browning of the teeth, which is also an issue. In the livestock sector, for instance, we've seen it in cattle, goats, sheep. Where they would, for instance, pick at their own wool, for instance, and that tells you that that's a deficiency of calcium. You also have instances of where, say, your animals would eat bones. So that means they're lacking phosphorus. And in this time of when it's raining, like right now, there's actually a reduction in the phosphorus content. And of course, some parts of Namibia, they are basically depleted in phosphorus. So you would need to supplement with phosphate in your licks that you give to your animals. Yeah.
Nice. Interesting. Now, if I see some of those things, I'll definitely remember this session. Nonetheless, we're running out of time, but I mean, I think we should have this as 1 hour sessions because it really takes me to classes I don't get on a regular. But that's a conversation for another day. Before we let you go, anything else you'd like to share with the public?
Yeah, no, it's quite important. Geology is a very diverse science. Yeah. There's so many branches of geology. There's geophysics, geochemistry. I'm a geochemist myself. There's medical geology, which is a new field of study gaining momentum. And let the Namibian public is more than welcome to come visit us at the Ministry of Industry, Mines and Energy. Particularly at the Geological Survey. We've got a library where they can actually read up more information or speak to one of the geoscientists. We're always, our offices are always open.
All right. Yeah. And that's how the Ministry of Industry, Mines and Energy is powering your future. Now, that's Mr. Gavin Kavindikiza this morning, joining us as he gets to shed a bit more light on this side of geoscience called medical geology. Now, you know as a farmer what to look out for, and as a regular individual, if you are in lead-prone spaces, that could have an effect on, children's brains and other respiratory aspects as well. So maybe, just maybe, this is the class we needed. That's pretty much all we had for you today. And, of course, your news coming up.
Feel good on 99 FM.